Hello, everyone. Today I have Sneha, and she is going to talk to us about her latest book, What Shape Are You? Did you know that your shape, the yes, that's a book. The shape also determines what personality are you, and that leads to a lot of things that one could know about themselves. So, without saying much, let's talk about the book, Sneha, and the core idea behind this book.
Yes. So what's interesting, Priyanka, is that I have a strong background of working with different groups. So I'm also a couples therapist. I'm also a leadership coach. So, I have a very interesting background of working with couples, working with open groups, also with very, very senior leadership. And the whole premise of the book, Priyanka, is based on this one fact. And the fact is that 75% of people that we meet in this lifetime are different from us. So it's amazing. So we are constantly surrounded by people who are different. So it could be a sibling, it could be a boss at work, it could be a spouse, somebody whom we are married to, it could be friends that we have around us. All of these people are different from us. Priyanka, are you there? It's a little
Yes,
frozen.
yes.
Yeah. So when people are different, I think one of the things that come up so frequently, so I'm going to give you an example. I am very active on LinkedIn. And so my posts, the ones that do exceedingly well with like lakhs of views, are how to deal with a toxic boss.
Hmm.
So what are the six types of difficult colleagues that we have around us? Even as couples, it's a lot around differences and conflicts and triggers, and how do we really sort of get along with people who are different from us? Who am I? Why is this happening? Why are people behaving the way they do? Has been the basis of my work in different ways for a long time. And psychogeometrics, or the system that I use in this, which is called What Shape Are You, it defines people in five shapes. So the interesting part is that you can know yourself and you can know people around you by just five geometric shapes. And the book goes on to tell you what's your dominant shape, how you could be living with people who are different from you, how do you love somebody who's different from you, what stresses you, what triggers you, and how can you become a better version of yourself. So I think this book attempts to answer a lot of questions, which is 15 years of my journey as a psychologist.
Amazing. You almost make it sound like some kind of nirvana one could get, knowing themselves by knowing the shape. Very interesting concept. I'm really intrigued. Sneha, tell us what led you to write this book. What has been your major motivation? Or was it something that was brimming inside you for like many years and it just had to come out?
Priyanka, what excites me about your background, you said, nothing amazing better than talking about books with a cup of coffee. And I've grown up in the midst of books. So everything, the times when I've not felt good, the times when I felt excited, when I've dreamt, when I felt low, it's been books. Then I became a psychologist. I ran a rehabilitation center for the emotionally disturbed. So I would work with people with endogenous depression, chronic anxiety, schizophrenia, bipolar. So it was not just the patients who came, but even their families, and the kind of stresses that it created for families and how it impacted relationships. Then I went on to work with youngsters. So I was working a lot with management postgraduate students in MBA colleges. And what's interesting is that the theme remained the same, just the context changed. So even then, I'm doing MBA, I don't want to do it. I have a different passion, but pressure from parents, then anxiety around friends, around love, around what's going to be the career, again, issues and differences, and who am I? What's my passion? How do I get along with other people? How do I function as an effective manager at workplace? So I realized that it just remains the same when I started working with couples. Again, it was all about how much do I adjust? How much do I change for somebody who's in my life? Is there compatibility? What are the differences? So again, the theme remained the same. And I realized, Priyanka, that we don't have a manual
Hmm.
for understanding people. We understand our physical world, we understand mathematics, we understand chemistry, we understand history and geography. But what about relationships? What about knowing ourselves and people? And a lot of times these kind of books, so I read tremendous amount of work and psychology and personalities. But my question was, can there be a book which is easy, which is filled with stories that you can say, oh, that's my life, I can relate to it, which is kind of breezy and which gives you a lot of insights. So that's the premise of the book. During the pandemic, a lot of people went through a lot. But for me, it was a beautiful time of creation, because that's when things stopped and I said, it's time for the book. And 3.5 months flat, and my book was done.
Great.
So,
Amazing. I was telling you in the very beginning, I'm really more used to interviewing fiction authors. But for me, it is slums. I enjoy reading nonfiction book. I mean, I'm a hoarder for all these management books, all those top 10 books that Bill Gates reads. I
yes,
do try and find them and read them. So I am really out of questions when I have to interview a nonfiction writer, okay? But I'm
sure,
going to ask you, I'm going to really compel you to tell us some stories. I know a lot of these stories are told to you at a personal, confidential level, but tell us, what are some of those typical issues that one has in their relationships, for example, with their
absolutely.
boss, with their spouses? Tell us some stories.
Thank you. So I love that, part, because, and I'm going to weave it into the 5 shapes that, that we are really talking about through this book. So let me begin with at home. So I am, the way to describe me is that I'm an extremely sensitive, caring, nurturing, kind of a person. So I'm a lover. So I love to take care of people, and people just open up. So I have my help, I have a driver. I'm blessed to be in a country where there's a lot of help. So I know everybody's life story, I know what's going on with them. It comes to me very naturally. My husband, on the other hand, who's also the co-founder of our company Isra together, he's an extremely left-brained, an absolute go-getter. He has goals in his life and ambitions in his life, and he's his approach is like, let's do it quickly, let's get things done. So now what happens is, we work together, we live together, and if there is any kind of an issue, so let's say we are going through a stress. Now the interesting part is that our stress responses are completely different. So
Mhm.
when I am upset and when I'm not feeling good, I want him to, just kind of listen to me, and give me a hug. So acknowledge what I'm saying and, like, just be there. Tell me, what's happening with you. And just that warmth of his presence, listen, I don't want anything. And that's half of the thing done. And Shashank, who's my partner, he cannot get into a conversation without fixing it, because he feels extremely out of control. So he will listen for a couple of seconds and then he will say, okay, so what can we do about this? So what would you like to do differently? He's a fixer. And I am like, what? I just want you to listen to me. And then he'll be like, yeah, yeah, I'm listening. But, I would want you to kind of not feel this
Say
way.
anything, just listen.
Yeah, so it's amazing how we handle a lot of things very, very differently. And I have another client whom I'm working with right now. They have finally decided to separate. And the premise of their relationship is, once again, the woman, very affectionate, very there. But all through in the relationship for the past 10 years in the marriage, she's felt very unacknowledged. She's felt she's given up a lot of herself to accommodate her partner. And the partner is somebody who is, he marches to his own drum. So he likes things happening his own way. He's not very appreciative, but he's a great provider. but not really somebody who listens much, very, very left brain. And she's like, he's never got what I really want. That, and I don't want to tell every time what I need attention, I need affection, I need you to spend some time with me, I need you to ask me what I would like to do on a holiday, rather than just follow what you have to do. And it's amazing how these constant core differences in our personality comes up. And what's amazing, Priyanka, is that the whole idea of compatibility. So couples come to me and I do a lot of counseling and they say, you know what, we are not sure if we are compatible. And I ask the question, what do you understand by the term compatibility? And they said, oh, it's about getting along and not having too many differences and just having a easy relationship. And it makes me smile because we get attracted to opposites. So we are always going to be attracted to somebody who's different from us, because what I don't have, the other person has. What the other person doesn't have, I have. And psychologically, two halves come together to create a stronger whole. So marriage is an institution that together we are better than what we would be individually. So it's like you can't have two similar people come in together, because then it's not a fit. But when I have two different people coming together, it's a space for tremendous triggers and a lot of conflict. So this compatibility of easygoing relationship is a very faulty concept by itself. So it's not about getting along and having everything easy, but it's about having wonderful conversations about what we are different on, without getting critical and judgmental and irritable and blaming and putting each other down. When you are able to see the gifts you bring on table and you're able to talk about those differences, is when magic happens. And the book, once again, is my attempt to tell people that how it says, discover who you really are and how to handle people who are different from you. So it actually gives people tools of how to, deal with people who are different, especially their inner circle, which causes the major agony. So that's the idea.
Shall we talk about a little bit about how do you really discover yourself? And
Yes.
because we talk a lot about trying to understand the other person, how is our interplay in relationship with the other person, but a lot of time I think the problem starts when we ourselves don't know who we are and what we want. So
Absolutely.
what kind of structures or what kind of thought processes do you give to people where you think that it is actually not an issue of the interpersonal relationship, but
Yes,
actually
yes.
something that's going inside that
You
person?
you've picked it up so beautifully, because that is the truth. It always starts from the self. Relationships are a mirror of who we are. And I always say that we are born, our personality is defined by nature and nurture. So we are born with a certain psychological blueprint. So just as we have similarities in terms of our physical way in which we look, we also have a natural psychological preference. Then we are born in a family, and family of people who are of different personalities. And then we realize that certain behaviors get rewarded and certain behaviors don't get rewarded. So the adapting of our personality begins. Then we have a friends, we are, the zone of our influence starts increasing. Then it's school and college and work, and we start adapting. The best part is, na Priyanka, the closer we are to our natural preference,
Hmm.
to our core, who we are as people, the easier we find to be in our lives. The more we try to be something that we are not, is when we start burning out. And which is what the book says, that there are five shapes. And the more you are able to identify what are your natural preferences, the more you are able to, sort of be happier. and find your own place in the world.
Right. I mean, it's really very interesting, and it almost feels like I'm having like a personal session with you. So
Yeah.
it's really very interesting when people who really kind of articulate these issues or put them into some kind of a structure, a system, for a lot of, because our mind is like really like crazy, right? I mean, it doesn't have any rules, it doesn't have any order, or
Yeah.
order of thought or anything, right? So these structures and these thought process or articulations really help people to develop them. Tell us a little bit more about your research process about this book. Like, did you have a lot of books around you which inspired you? Were these all these stories or the people you met for over decades of doing workshops and counseling?
Yes.
What was the background? Like, where did your material come from?
So I am certified in 18 different personality assessments. It is something that I love diving into, seeing a human being from different lenses. And it's all the same. It all comes down to, a very similar couple of core principles. And so my research has been intensive in terms of theoretical framework and actually seeing people live in workshop settings, in my individual work with them. So this book kind of brings in the concept, which is the framework, and the way it is spoken about is in the form of stories. Because every time I've worked with people, I've understood their personality shapes. So I'm going to take like just less than a couple of minutes, where 2012 is when I met Dr. Susan Dellinger, who's also the co-author of this book, and she's the one who first came about with this whole concept of shapes. And 2012 to 2000, almost 20s, when I actually wrote the book, I have used this system with thousands of people.
Mhm.
So a lot of people validated, you can understand yourself and people around you. So within first 3 chapters, you get your personality shape, first 3 chapters.
Right.
And then the rest of the time, you refine your understanding of yourself and people around you.
So it's a lot of like self work that one does with while reading the book. So there are some kind of worksheets or questions or ideas that one can really do like a self evaluation. I'm sure this must be like a treasure trove for HR staff and people who would like love to hire.
Completely. People have actually read it with their spouses. In our workshops, they've given it to all managers. So one thing I promise, that people will read it first because you can't stop reading it, and then go back to it again with a highlighter, sort of marking all the sections. This is my promise.
Great. It was such a lovely talking to you, Sneha. I wish you all the best. I'm definitely going to pick up the book on Kindle,
Yes,
and I
please
hope,
do.
yes. I'm going to pick up this book on Kindle, and I'll write to you once I read it, for sure.
Yes. And please tell me, what shape are you? I already have a sense, but I
You already
would
have a
love to.
sense.
I already have a sense. So, what shape are you? And I would love to talk more about it.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. Take care.
Bye bye.